What's going on, guys? We are back with another Win-A-Box Finals, the finals for Win-A-Box number 3. Man, these are actually going by a lot faster than I thought they would. We're going to have to start calling them months or something. Win-A-Box November, Win-A-Box December. So we've got the finals here. About 3.5 weeks worth of games led to this finals match. We got Raider Introvert at the top, Goblin of Greed at the bottom, also used to go by Giantsbane in the community. So we're going to go and do the rock, paper, scissors here. They actually tied with scissors. You don't see very many people pick scissors, but Giantsbane's going to win the rock, paper, scissors. He's going to elect to go second, usually safe going second blind here. These players have not played against each other in the Swiss rounds. So skills are going to come down. Giantsbane, obviously, immediately you got to flip up TP at the start of the duel. Raider, obviously most likely running the IC Warrior. And then it looks like Raider's going to go first. Given that he's playing IC Warrior, that's definitely what they want. They like to go first just because it gives them that option to make that OTK play where you steal you summon a monster, go back to your opponent, he summons a monster, back to you, you steal the monster, tribute it for Jinzo, double swing for lethal. So that is going to be an option that Raider has here. Game 1, because he is going first. We'll see what he decides to do. Taking his time thinking on what he wants to do here. He's running 20 cards, Giantsbane is running 25 cards. So 25 cards most likely means the TP is going to be a stall variant and not necessarily TP Warriors. I mean, I know the decks, I'm playing coy here. I do know what they're running. Giantsbane is going to be running Apprentice Magician, but they don't know what each other is running. So Raider's kind of thinking it through. He's going to normal summon the Gear Freedom face up. Smart to do, just because you can set it, but against something like TP Warrior, obviously Gearfried has more attack than defense, so he summons it face up and then passes his turn. No back row or anything, which most likely means he's got a Jinzo in hand, possibly a Sphere Kribo, which you should be running in this meta, main decking. Back over to Giantsbane or Goblin, he's going to set 1. Looks like a T set, set 2. So we're going to go over to Raider. Raider now is going to have to decide if he's confident in going for an OTK play. Goblin has got 4,500 life, though, off the Ladybug. So the Ladybug actually, I don't know if Raider can actually look for an OTK here. He's not going to have lethal if he brings down a Jinzo. It would only be 4,200 and Goblin's sitting at 4,500. But the Night Beam comes down. Definitely means that Raider was running, I know that Raider was maining 3 Night Beams in his deck, so he's definitely looking for the OTK plays with IC Warrior. With those Night Beams. Same thing Dark Moth players usually look for. He hits the offerings, which may give Raider the confidence to try and go for an Inner Conflict play here, because the offerings will be down. Most likely Giantsbane's not going to have another one, which means the Jinzo would be uncontested. So that, yeah, okay, so he's going to flip up the Inner Conflict. He's going to go for the play. Little risky. Inner Conflicts, you know, he's going to lose life points there, so he's if he goes for this play, Goblin will survive with 300 life and have 3 TP counters. So I don't know if that's really the right play here. He might be jumping the gun, because this isn't going to be game, and it'll actually go back to Goblin, and he'll have quite the setup. He'll have 3 cards. One we know is a Ladybug, but he will have 2 cards, plus he has the TP pop, plus an additional face down card. So he's going to swing with the Jinzo for 24. And then he may just not swing with this Gearfried and just leave it as is. And I feel like if he does that, that's a really bad play. Looking back, it was the old Vindictive that he was able to tribute off with the Jinzo. But he's just going to sweep back. I feel like that's not a very good play. He does have an established board. He does have the Jinzo. He did get rid of 1 offerings. Giantsbane may not see another one for the rest of the game. He should only have 1 or maybe 2 left in the deck. But the fact that he passed back over, and he didn't even swing with the Gearfried, so now the life points are actually Goblin's got 26 and Raider's got 2k. And he no longer has a skill, and of course Giantsbane has a second offerings to get rid of the Jinzo. This is looking really bad for Raider right now. He lost his skill, he lost his Jinzo. He didn't really get off these one-time skills like Inner Conflict. Usually whenever you're in a matchup like this where your opponent has a skill that can go off multiple times and you have a skill that can only get off once, you have to be very careful with when you choose to use your one-time skill, because now you don't have a skill. The Nightmare Wheel is down. It can target the Gearfried. It doesn't equip to Gearfried, so Gearfried's effect will not destroy the Nightmare Wheel. You can attach a Nightmare Wheel to Gearfried which is going to be netting Goblin counters every single turn. He rips a Gear Feed out of the hand. There's actually a lot of monsters. Where are... So Raider opened 3 monsters plus a Night Beam, unfortunately. So a little bit more of a better mixture of cards for Giants main. But to be honest, in this matchup, you kind of want to see a lot of monsters, because you can just kind of slowly, every single turn, summon a new monster and swing over Goblin's weak monsters and just kind of every turn be going +1. So I don't think it's too bad. The opening hand's not ideal, but it isn't really that bad. But Raider's got some decisions to make here, because he's definitely on the back foot right now. He's thinking. You don't really know what about, but that is something you'll actually see in sort of these burn matchups, is the non-burn player takes more time thinking than the burn player. I definitely feel like burn is a little bit easier to pilot, just because your decisions are very straightforward. Do I set the Man-Eater Bug? Do I not? Do I set the Apprentice Magician? Do I not? Do I set the Nightmare Wheel? Do I not? But he's going to summon the Command Knight and swing over the Apprentice Magician, which is going to fetch another Apprentice Magician. Interesting, he could have fetched an Old Vindictive, but it looks like you kind of just, with this deck, you want to go through the cycle. You want to, once one Magician dies, just keep searching Magicians. It can change depending on what the board looks like, but Goblin's definitely content just kind of stalling this one out. He's got the Nightmare Wheel down in 3 turns. If Raider can't get the Nightmare Wheel off, the game will be over, so he's just going to go for another Magician. There's the Nightmare Wheel. It's going to put him up to 2 counters, so I guess Raider couldn't get that card out of his hand, and he's going to have to discard it here more than likely, because I'm expecting Goblin to remove the counters for the discard here. Yep, he removes the counter for the discard. He's going to rip the card out of the hand. It was a Jinzo. Wait, what? Why didn't Raider tribute off the Gear Freed for the Jinzo and get rid of the Nightmare Wheel? I don't know, I definitely feel like that's a bit of a misplay. I think, so he decided to normal summon the Command Knight knowing, or maybe not knowing, not thinking about how he was going to lose the Jinzo next turn if he doesn't do that. I think that's a misplay. I think he could have had the Jinzo on board, the Nightmare wouldn't be there, he would still have a Command Knight in hand because he wouldn't have taken the 500 from TP, so he wouldn't have lost another card. I think he just went -1 there for really no reason and left the Nightmare Wheel on the board. His field could have been Command Knight Jinzo right now instead of Command Knight Gear Free Command Knight, and only 2 of the Command Knights can attack. I don't know, I think, and he's still on a clock. He's only got 1,000 life. He could have had 1,500. You know, Goblin's just probably waiting for another Nightmare Wheel or another Zoma at this point. Or not another Zoma, but his first Zoma at this point. And it'll just be game. So Goblin here is going for just rotating through his Magicians, and then he's going to end up on the Old Vindictive. I can't believe that he didn't summon the Jinzo. He decided to summon the Command Knight. I feel like that was a mistake. Maybe he thought he'd draw into Dust Tornado really soon. I think Raider's only seen, Raider's seen nothing but monsters and then 1 Night Beam. But that isn't really a problem against this deck. Like, seeing all monsters against this type of deck that Goblin is running really isn't that big of a deal. Every turn, you kind of want to see monsters. One of the ways you lose is not seeing any monsters to get over, and he just keeps setting and setting and setting and gets ahead of you in monster count. It's really difficult to come back from that point. But Raider's looking like this one's done. I mean, Goblin's almost all the way back up to 4,000 off the first Jinzo swing. He does have 1 counter. He's going to get more just trying to chip away at the 3,600. And Raider's going to lose next turn if he can't get this Nightmare Wheel off, which he could have gotten it off. Did he draw his last Jinzo? 2. Oh, no, okay, so he saw Gaia. So that's smart. He remembered that Gaia, you can tribute 2 for Gaia. But even then, I mean, now you're tributing 2 when you have 500 life points left, instead of tributing 1 3 turns ago when you had 1,500 life points left for a Jinzo. I definitely feel like that was a big misplay. I feel like 2 misplays from Raider this game were going too aggressive at the start when he didn't really need to. In these sort of burn matchups, if you have all monsters, you're sitting pretty. You know, just play with your monsters and just every turn swing over his guys. No problem. Let your dusts and your twisters do the work. I actually do know Raider's list. I should know he's not running Dust Tornadoes. He's running 3 Night Beam over 3 Dust Tornado. But you just let your back row hate, come in as it is and just slowly overwhelm them. Every single turn he's losing a monster, and you're not necessarily going to be because he has Apprentice Magicians and things like that. I definitely feel like Raider just got too antsy and went for the OTK. He didn't even have the OTK. And then there's the Zoma coming down. That's going to be game, unfortunately. So, and then just burning all the way down to 15. Honestly, after using the inter-conflict play, I don't even think it would have mattered if he summoned the Jinzo earlier, tributed off the Gearfried, summoned the Jinzo. I don't think it would have changed anything seeing the Zoma now, and knowing that he had the Apprentice engine at that point to go into the Old Vindictive to get rid of the Jinzo. And another offering, so I don't think it necessarily mattered. I think the biggest issue was just going for that OTK turn 3. And getting a little greedy, ironically. But we'll see what they can side into. You know, the burn deck, I would say, has like a decent matchup game 1, just because a lot of people don't run anti-burn cards. I think burn is only like the 5th most played deck right now. But in the side, I mean, there's things that could eviscerate this deck. You got Hades, you got Gap, even things like Amazoness Trainee. You can have more back row destruction that can really just give them a lot of trouble. So we'll see what Raider ends up siding into. There's actually 5 watchers. I believe this is the Latin community here. Or GN. No, GN is 0. But I do think that they had mentioned that they were playing. Not in the Discord, but perhaps in a group chat or something. But yeah, so game 1 is going to Giant Spain. Well played by Giant Spain. I feel like Burn's a little easy. It's kind of like autopilot almost, but Giant Spain did what he needed to do. And then Raider and Trafford, unfortunately, I think made one really big misplay, just kind of blowing his load a little too early. And then not getting the Gearfried off to summon the Jinzo. I don't think it mattered, given just the way things progress, but you don't really play like that. You play where it's like, get the Gearfried off, save yourself the life points. I don't think he was keeping track of the TP skill, and didn't know that if he doesn't tribute off the Gearfried the next turn, he's just going to lose the Jinzo anyway to the discarding effect of the TP, so... but the beauty of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that you get a second game and potentially third game to sort of make up those mistakes, so... Raider's thinking really hard on what he wants to side. Maybe he got busy or something. Maybe we're having connection issues. Or his mom came in or something. And is nagging him. Why didn't you tribute the Gearfried for Jinzo? Why did you summon the Command Knight? But we'll see here. I'm going to go ahead and click next play down here real quick. Even Giant Spain ready. Taking his sweet time. But here we go. So we'll see. Raider gets to decide if he wants to go first or second. He's playing IC, so he's probably, yep, he's going to take the first. So he will have the potential OTK play available to him, assuming Giant Spain doesn't see the Ladybug or the offerings. We'll see. I think Raider only saw all monsters last game too, outside of the one Night Beam. So that's actually an ideal start though. In my opinion, is having just a constant supply of monsters. It's really not that bad. It's playable. It's a playable hand. And a lot of matchups it wouldn't be playable, but I feel like against something like Apprentice Burn, it's playable. So Giant Spain going to open up with the Ladybug again, so the OTK play is not going to be available. And hopefully Raider doesn't go for it this time. Just nice and steady. Slow and steady. So he's going to go ahead and set. Same opening from Giant Spain, it looks like. Reveal the Ladybug, and then 2 back row, and then 1 set monster. Raider, wow, these are actually a mirrored opening, practically. I guess Raider had just the 1 Gearfried this time, but... There's the turn 3 Night Beam. Hits a Nightmare Wheel this time. Actually, let me see. Ooh, so Giant Spain had actually swapped it. Last time he set the Nightmare Wheel here, and the offerings here. This time he swapped them, and so he set the offerings here and the Nightmare Wheel here. So that's good adaptation from Giant Spain here. And then we're going to go and see. He set a Command Knight and an offerings. Okay. Ooh, he has offerings. I don't really like the offerings. I think he should have... I don't know if he could side those out, but I think he should have sided out the offerings. Offerings can only target a face-up monster, and Giant Spain isn't really going to be playing any face-up monsters. So your offerings are kind of dead in this matchup, so I think he probably should have taken them out. If he sided, I don't even know. He took a long time thinking, so I'm assuming he sided something in, and he probably should have taken out the offerings, because that's probably going to be the most useless card in this matchup. But we'll see. I guess it could get rid of like a lava golem if that ends up coming down. So, and it might be one of the only. But you do have like the Jinzo tributes. I don't know. You know, maybe leave in 1 offerings, take the others out. So you have 3 Jinzo plus an offerings. That's 4 outs to lava golem. That should be enough. And maybe that is his 1 offerings. So we'll see. But he summons 2 monsters. He's going to swing into the face down. Fingers crossed, no magician. It is a magician, of course. And then that's just going to get the command knight taken out there. Which is fine, overall. You're just 1 for 1-ing here, not too bad. Giant's going to go here, going to reveal another Ladybug. Or the same Ladybug, so he's going to go up to 5k. The Ladybug's okay, you know, don't let the Ladybug scare you. It's 500 per turn. You know, you hit him directly once with 1 Gaia, and it erases almost 4 turns worth of the Ladybug. So don't feel pressured because your opponent is revealing a Ladybug. It's just adding, you know, after like several turns, it adds the number of attacks needed by like 1. Maybe 2 if he sets the Ladybug. It's not... Don't freak out thinking you really have to go. And maybe that's something that scared Raider into trying to go for the OTK turn 3. He didn't even have it last game, but don't let the Ladybug pressure you. Raider's also never asking if he set the Ladybug. You're allowed to know if your opponent set the... You can ask, did you set the Ladybug or is that a different card? So here we go. We've got Edgeford setting another card. He still has the Charging Gaia. It's a bit even, he still has an Icy, so he didn't use his Icy skill yet. I don't actually know if he could have, but he's still got that play available to him as well. No counters on TP yet. It's pretty even right now. I'd say the longer the game goes, though, it's more Giantsbane favored. Just you're not going to outstall stall, which is kind of Apprentice Burn is kind of like Apprentice Burn, and it also has a stall element to it. So, the longer the game goes, the more it's favored for Raider, or more it's favored for Giantsbane. So hopefully Raider can get the let out, get the gas going. He's going to flip up the Inner Conflict, take the face down. Hopefully he grabs something good, and more than likely here tribute it off. For a Hades, perhaps? No, the Jinzo. Okay, so we'll see if Giantsbane has his back locked up. No, he has double offerings, so... Of course he has double offerings, so that Jinzo is not really going to do anything here. And he paid half his life for it. We'll see if Goblin wants to eat an attack here. He doesn't. He wouldn't want to take the Jinzo anyway, so he's going to offer the Jinzo, obviously. But he could take a Charging Gaia attack here, just to get a second counter on TP. But it looks like he doesn't want to. He's just going to offerings the Gaia. So, and those are not going to, those will stack, sorry. The offerings will stack, so Giantsbane will only skip his draw turn, or draw phase, 1 time. So a little bit of value there. Normally offerings is a delayed -1, but in this case, one of the offerings is going to stack its skip draw phase with the other, so. And Raider may run into a problem of not having any monsters. Last time he saw all monsters, this time he's got 3 already down. We're going to take a peek at the hand. A Night Beam, okay, that's not too bad. Honestly, they have so few cards. Let's go ahead and see what they're working with here. So we got, double offerings. He's going to set the Night Beam. That's a little risky, but because now he's locked. So if Goblin doesn't see any back row to actually get Night Beamed, then he really can't use any of these cards here, but we'll see. Giantsbane did have the, what did he set? Jar of Avarice, so this might get Night Beamed here if Giantsbane doesn't flip it up. Is that standby phase? What a pro, dude. What a pro. He knew that Raider was running Night Beam, so he flips up the Jar of Avarice in the standby phase, just in case one of those cards is Night Beam. Little surprising because you don't expect a player to set a Night Beam, that's just, but, you know, there's no reason not to flip up the Jar here. Like, what are you sitting on it for? It's just like, flip it up, very next turn. Jar of Avarice basically replaces itself with a new card, and then puts effectively 4 more cards into your deck. So, looks like Giantsbane's asking for a DD Crow. I think if he had DD Crow, he would have already have tossed the DD Crow. But he's asking at least. Oh, you don't gotta do this. Come on, man. If he had the DD Crow, he would have DD Crow'd. He wouldn't be sitting on it for this long. He would have discarded the DD Crow. I mean, technically, he needed the DD Crow the second the jar was flip face up. You have to chain it to the jar. If the jar is resolving, it's done. So he doesn't have the Crow. Next play. There's no way he has the Crow. Okay, no, I don't have. Yeah, there's no way he has the Crow. It's just if he had it, he would have discarded it a long time ago. But so that's going to be a jar, and you're kind of seeing the stall element of Apprentice Burn here. It's a little risky to run jar just because I don't even think it's really necessary. If you do the math, Raider has 20 cards and you have 25. Jar is only a 4-card difference. It's just literally Raider could have jar and Goblin could not, and it still wouldn't help him. Because jar only returns 4 cards. It returns 5, but then you draw, so it only puts 4 cards back into your deck count. So the jar, I don't really think it's too big of a deal here for this particular matchup. But he's actually going to reveal double Ladybug now. That's a problem. Basically, with Ladybugs, just subtract 1,000 at this point from whatever you're going to hit him with. If you're going to hit him with a Command Knight, you're not dealing 1,600. You're dealing 600, and he is now at 7,000 life. And Raider's skill is gone. I would say that this game is pretty much over. When Stall gets into a groove like this, that's just brutal. And Raider's locked himself out of back row. He drew into a Zoma, and this is part of the reason why you don't want to set the Night Beam. Is just now you can't even set the Zoma to start trying to swing and get some damage. The Twister is a good card, but I don't even think these offerings should have been in the deck at this point, to be honest. For this particular matchup, it's just, we'll see. I guess he shuffled everything back into the deck, but he's not summoning anything face up. These offerings just don't do anything. They probably should have been sided out. I don't know what he sided out, how many cards he sided out, if he sided out, but I definitely feel like if you're going to take anything out, the offerings should be the ones coming. Maybe leave one if you're scared of the Lava Golem, but other than that, yeah, Raider set a card. He took it back. I was like, why is he set? What could he be setting? You need to be swinging. Yeah, sorry, I was meant to summon. Okay, so we'll see if Giant's Bane's nice. He'll let him take it back. Yep, okay. So we'll see what he meant to summon here, the Gearfried. He's got to get swinging. He's got to get through these monsters. This is a really, really bad spot for Raider here. I almost want to say in these type of scenarios, it's 99%, favored for Giant's Bane to win this match. Raider's over here hoping that, like, Giant's Bane's internet goes out or something. That's whatever the odds are of a sudden power surge in whatever country Giant's Bane living in. That is the odds of Raider winning this game at this point. And it's just, yep. Vindictive comes down, and now it's just all these monsters you gotta assume are 1-for-1 monsters, so Raider's it's gonna be very difficult for him to get the monster lead count back again, because every monster that Giants has just kills one of your monsters unless you have effect negation. You need Dark Ruler Hadez here. There's a Night Beam, finally Giants Bane sets a card, so the Night Beam can actually be used, hits a Zoma. And so now at least Raider can set a Zoma, which is not bad here because it's one of the only forms of special summoning in the game, so you can actually get 2 monsters on the field very quickly. You normal summon one, special summon the other. So I think Zoma's fine. Raider can set it here. Let's go and make sure that is what he said. Yep. And then hopefully he can get a monster on the field here. Giants has 2 Ladybugs, so there's the Blade Knight. We'll see if this swings over Old Vindictive. We'll see. Yeah, he's got one, he put the other one back into the deck. So this Blade Knight will turn off flip effects if he's the only monster on your side of the field. So it will turn off a flip effect here if it is one. We'll see if Raider gets lucky here. More than likely it's not. Yeah, it's not. Just given numbers, he's already gone through 1 Magician, so there goes. And then Goblin's immediately going to go into the Old Vindictive so that he can flip it up on his turn to get rid of the Blade Knight. It will put a little bit of a wrench in the Magician engine, though. He's not going to get to keep cycling through them like he did game 1. But we have... It's just not looking... I mean, at this point, 2 Ladybugs. Every attack you do has basically 1,000 attack points pulled off of it in terms of overall effective damage. And then he's got TP every time you swing. I mean, at this point, you're effectively doing 1,000 per turn. And every turn you give him a counter. That's very, very problematic. And now he has monster advantage. I'm saying this game is just unfortunately looking over. This would not be game if Raider goes through. He shouldn't let it go through because obviously you'll have to deal with the TP counters that come from it as well. But so at least he can use his offerings here and get Nidori off the board. That's definitely going to be nice. Has to skip his draw phase, though, unfortunately. He has a second Offerings if he wants to use it on the old Vindictive. He also has the Zoma, which has 500 defense, which can take this attack. It would allow Goblin. Goblin can continue it and get a counter, though, if he really wants, for 50 life. He has 10,000 life points. Will he take the 50 life point hit here to activate his TP, to put his TP within activation range? And he will. Little interesting that Raider didn't just Offerings, just double stack the Offerings. He has to skip his draw phase here anyways. And then he could swing with the Zoma directly, and potentially if he has another monster in hand. I think we already saw this, it was a Twister, unfortunately, but... and then just with 2 counters here, if he didn't let the Vindictive hit, he would only have 1 counter here. He could swing with the Zoma, and the Zoma would boost the TP counter up to 2. But now it's going to boost the TP counter up to 3 if he does any damage here. And yeah, Raider can actually draw. So here, what you have to do is you have to reveal the card and then place it back on top of the deck. That's Konami's procedures, is you reveal the card to your opponent, place it back on top of the deck, and then continue game. Looks like Goblin asked him to shuffle. That's technically what he just did. Might actually escalate this to a game loss, because now the game state isn't repairable. It was supposed, Offerings was supposed to be the next card drawn, and now it's most likely isn't. So, but no, the correct procedure here for Konami rulings or procedural rulings here is you reveal the card so that both players know what it is, place it back on top of the deck, and then continue play from there. And that's sort of a repaired game state. But we'll see what Raider can do here. I'm thinking this is pretty much over. This is just like playing with his food here for Goblin. He has no inner conflict skill. That's actually the only damage that Raider's taken so far, so you can kind of see Apprentice Burn isn't really burning much, but he also hasn't seen very many trap cards. Just the Zoma. And then I think he saw a bunch of monsters too. Jar of Hours put back like 3 monsters, I think, or 4 monsters, so Giants Bane's seen a lot of monsters here. I mean, gosh, just look at how much value you would get from a Dark Ruler Hadez here or something. Negated. I guess if this was negated, you might not have to deal with this, but you know. And then I know he shuffled back in a few other monsters that Hadez would have turned off as well. Just so much value out of a Hadez. Even something like a Gap would have had some serious value in terms of damage, at least. But you gotta, you know, prepare for this deck and have some side deck cards, and maybe Raider does, and he's just not seeing them. Really unfortunate. Sometimes that's just how it is. You know, you side in one Hadez, and it's the bottom card of your deck, and it's just, or it's really deep into the deck, and by the time you see it, you're too far behind for it to matter. But at this point, it's pretty much over. He's got double Ladybug. That's 1,000 per turn. He can also set the Ladybugs. He top decks his 3rd Lady, so he's getting 1,500. I mean, it's just over. You can't even... You could mathematically... Goblin could just not even play the game anymore, and it's over. Just reveal the Ladybugs every turn for 1,500. Remember to activate your TP at 3 counters, and Raider will go through all 8 of his cards, and Goblin will still have plenty of life points to spare. So... But we'll play it out for competitive integrity reasons. Raider laughing at it. That's about all you can do, is the fucking meme where he's got the fucking ha ha ha, but behind it he's crying. In comes another Apprentice, so that should be the last one, because I think he wasted one. Yeah, so last Apprentice in the deck. This is something that Trainee would turn off, Hadez would turn off. Gap would sort of punish by doing a good amount of damage. But 12,600 life points. Yeah, there's pretty much nothing. We can go ahead and let's go and show both hands here. Just might as well. So Raider goes in and pulls up a Jinzo. Nothing at this point matters at all. What's Raider sitting on here? Offerings and 2 Twisters. So it looks like he sided in Twisters. I don't think he had these game 1. And I think that the Twisters should have came in over the Offerings, because the Offerings are just completely... The Blade Knight is nice. And the monsters in general are nice, the Night Beams are good, but I think the Offerings just shouldn't have stayed. If he sided in the Twisters, should have taken out the Offerings for the Twisters. Because the Offerings are just completely useless here, unfortunately. But Raider, trying to think, I guess he's thinking if he wants to tribute the Command Knight here for the Jinzo. We know that that is a Magician, we know that that's what he searched for. And he's not, he's just going to swing over the Magician, that's fine. I think we'll see... It is a Nightmare Wheel, so that's fine. And this is kind of what you want to do. What he's doing here is what he should have done game 1, where it's like you just chill. You chill, you swing with the Command Knights, you wait for him to Nightmare Wheel your Command Knight, then you tribute off the Command Knight for a Jinzo. You know, wait for him to use his Nightmare Wheels, and then just tribute off the monsters that get Nightmare Wheeled. Play it slow, summon a monster per turn, and that's the exact position he was in game 1, to just take it slow and pretty much auto-win. But here, he's got Twisters, he's got Nightmare Beams. Night Beams. Does hit in Offerings, that's nice. We know that that's a Magician face down though, so he's going to lose his only summonable monster here. And he's only got 5 cards left. We'll see, how many monsters do they usually have? 1, 2, 3. So he should be seeing monsters here. He's seeing kind of a bit of a reversal. Game 1 he saw all monsters. Game 2 it's like he's drawing into mostly his spells and traps. And you're just kind of seeing what that looks like. You know, you definitely want the all monsters side of things when you're playing against Burn. The spells just don't really... The spells are kind of like amplifiers, but against Burn, what are you amplifying? Nothing. Like, you want your monsters, as many monsters as possible. You could play 20 cards, and if they were all monsters, you would beat Burn. Because you just slowly beat... If they're the right monsters, you would just beat Burn every time. And then, you know, maybe have like 3 dust. and you'd be fine. So there's the swing into the Magician. Giant Bane actually tried to stop it with the Nightmare Wheel, but Twister was not having any of that. I think Raider probably should have used the Twister in hand to do that, just because then now he doesn't have anything. Not that it literally matters at all, but it's just a technicality. Draws into a second, it's a waste of a turn, basically, can't do anything. He can set the Twister, I guess. Nope, just gonna pass turn. And a slow defeat. Well played by Giantsbane. Piloting Apprentice Burn, in my opinion, is not a unbeatable deck. It has very clear counters. So I think it was a good, perhaps, meta call, just given the sort of the decks that people were playing this tournament. You know, I think that it's sort of under the radar, where people are just not prepared for it. A lot of people are super prepared for, you know, Warrior matchups, TP Warrior, IC Warrior, maybe some Dark Moth, not really respecting Apprentice Magician and what the Apprentice Magician Burn and other Burn style decks, but I think Apprentice is probably the best one. Gravekeeper Burn was probably the best one before Jinzo, but now that Jinzo's here, it's looking like Apprentice Magician Burn is probably the best Burn deck here. But there's another Gearfried, and this game is just unfortunately over. 18,000 life, he can just not do anything, end his turn every single turn, and just let the deck. But you can see here, you can see the deck count, how it's 2 to 8 here. So even if Giantsbane did not play Jar of Avarice, he would still be at 4 to 2 cards left in the deck. And so you can kind of see how the Jar wouldn't have really mattered, unless Giantsbane is worried that Raider has a Jar of his own. You can kind of, that's one reason to like put your Jar in to beat their Jar. But honestly, people shouldn't even be playing Jar in this meta. It's such a dead card. Giantsbane saw it early too, so if Giantsbane was actually, if Giantsbane saw that Jar, I think he sided it, but if he saw it and Raider opened up a game 1 opening hand, Giantsbane would have lost this game because the Jar is just dead. So I think it's definitely just like he needed to see not run the Jar, but what am I talking about? He needed to not run the Jar of Avarice. He needed to, in my opinion, I just think it's not a very good card. Unless for some reason you have insider intel and know that your opponent's playing Jar of Avarice, maybe you played against him in Swiss and you saw their Jar, there's just not really a reason to have Jar in this meta. Or I guess unless you know that somebody else is playing Apprentice Magician Burn as well, some sort of stall build as well, then maybe you want, you know, and you guys are going to match up, maybe you want your own Jar of Avarice. But they've pretty much gone through their whole decks at this point. And there's just, again, there's nothing that Raider can do at this point. It is impossible. Completely impossible. You could literally have Yami Yugi himself take over Raider's spot from here, and it is just, it is over. Giantsbane. So not Jar for game. No Jars for game. I don't even think Jar was a very worthwhile card for this particular game. Just how it played out. I mean, even if Raider had a Jar at this point, it would still be 7 to 4. Or sorry, 7 to 5. So it's just no hope. No hope. There comes down the offerings. Skipping the draw phase. He's got a Warrior Elim. Definitely, Warrior Elim is not bad. You know, I was playing TP Warriors at the NYCC event 2 weeks ago. And one thing that was always in the back of my mind is just how much I pray that my opponents are not running Warrior Elim, because it's effectively a Raigeki against IC Warrior TP Warriors. It's just, if you're not playing Warriors and your opponent is, Warrior Elim is just Raigekis their field. And it feels really bad when you're sitting on like a Command Knight and a Gaia and you just get Warrior Elim like that. But hey, finally, is that the offerings from the... Yeah, he was finally able to use the offerings from turn 1. All the way here at turn 20 or something. Just offerings should not have been. Should not have been. And I think it absolutely should have been taken. And you're seeing it right here. Offerings. He set that turn 1 offering. Something that just is a 1-for-1 removal. And he literally could not actually find an opportunity to play it until the game is completely over 20, 30 turns later. Raider, respectful, I don't scoop. Keep playing out, dude. Always. Hey, Goblin's internet connection could disconnect at any point here. Play all the way till the end, right? Goblin, what are the odds that a healthy, 20-year-old has a heart attack, right? Just out of nowhere. That could absolutely win you the game here. Just always play out. Last second, you never know what's going to happen. Yugioh for real, man. Yugituber. I actually miss a lot of Yugitubers too. I used to play the advanced format way back in the day, 2010, like 2008 to 2012. I miss a lot of Yugitubers from back then. But quality-wise, I would argue that the current Yugitubers just have higher production value and stuff because, comparing 2009 YouTube to 2020 YouTube is just night and day. So, but looking over here, didn't even have to set any of the golden ladybugs for any sort of defense. But this is over, so Giant's Bane is actually took a break from the Speed Duel community. I believe winning this event will put him on the Speed Duel leaderboard. I don't know where exactly. I think it'll put him somewhere like 7th, 6th, 5th, which is where he was whenever the leaderboard was first started back in July. So, should have phoned that turns ago. Not that it would have changed anything with your 20,000 life points. Yeah, this game was over probably 10, 15 turns ago. But Giant's Bane, it's good to see him back competing in tournaments. Definitely one of the best players in the game. And hopefully a lot of them. I know that Mike taking a little bit of a break. Marco maybe taking a little bit of a break. And hopefully some top players will come back whenever the box comes out. I know a lot of people are just slowing down. Even the winner boxes are kind of slowing down with participants. It's just everybody's kind of waiting for the Speed Duel box. But here we go. Hits him directly for 16, dropping him down to 20,500. Only about, 10, 15 more attacks to get him down to 0. Oh, sorry, he gained life points. Okay, never mind. So yeah, it was about 12 to 13 more attacks to drop Giant's Bane to 0. But the game is over. So Giant's Bane is your champion. Congratulations to Goblin of Greed, aka Giant's Bane. Nice try from Raider. I think that he kind of misplayed it a little bit. Game 2, he saw it looked like it was mostly front-loaded with spells and traps and back-loaded with the monsters, which is really not how you want things to play in this matchup. But Raider definitely had a couple of oopsies during the game, and I think he definitely could have won game 1, in my opinion, if he just did not go for the OTK turn 3. I think just seeing a constant supply of monsters, including 2 Genzos, was just, he definitely had the ability to win game 1. Game 2, it looked just more spells and traps, couldn't really win. But well played to both players, and congratulations to Giant's Bane. We're going to go ahead and go into the deck breakdown for the tournament to kind of show you guys what was played, what topped here once they're done. So they're flipping up the Warrior Elim. And then what is he going to summon a Ladybug with 0/0 to hit him for nothing. No, Antropher chains offerings to the Warrior Elim. You will not destroy my Warrior. I will. And that's about as good as offerings is going to be in this matchup. Is just offerings your own freaking guy, because just Stall is not going to play anything face up for you to offerings outside of maybe a Zoma, and you can just have a Twister or a Dust or a Night Beam for those guys. So I guess if the Zoma's face up, obviously Night Beam wouldn't work, but you get it before he flips it face up. The Offerings does prevent Raider from going through his draw phase, so it actually did stall a turn, technically, just to get blasted by the 0-0 Ladybugs. They're messing around now. But congratulations to Giants Bane, well-fought tournament. I believe he finished 5-1 in Swiss, so he tied for first. There were no undefeated in Swiss this time. But really well played, and then we're going to go ahead and get into the deck breakdown here. Alright guys, here we are with the Winnabox number 3 deck breakdown. We're still trying out some different graphics here, in case you noticed the differences between Winnabox 1, 2, and 3 at this point. No doubt Winnabox number 4 is probably going to have a different graphic too. We're just testing out to kind of see what everything looks like, and hopefully we can find one that we like here pretty soon. But this is the deck breakdown. As you can see here, we've got 38 players. We're just going to go from bottom to top here as we discuss some interesting things about the decks that people chose to play for the event. So starting at the bottom, only one person played Warrior Moth. That's down over the last couple of Winnaboxes. Usually a couple people play it, but the one person did top. I do think that Warrior Moth is a pretty good deck. I like it pretty much about as much as I like Dark Moth. I might actually like it a little bit more than Dark Moth. I think that Dark Moth just has some problems that I think Warrior Moth doesn't really have right now. Dealing with Jinzo and sort of playing through. I don't like the fact that Dark Moth's core is just a lot of weak monsters that kind of don't do anything. So I like Warrior Moth for that reason. But then we also have Stall here. I don't like Stall, so only one person played it and they did not top. And that's what I like to see with Stall. And then we had one Harpy player, we had one Gaia still around from, I know that back whenever the starter decks first came out, it was being played like crazy, a lot of people playtesting it. I think that we all kind of settled on the fact that it's not really good. But we had one person play it that didn't top. And then we had Despair Zombies, that is Terramaster coming in as the one person playing Despair. Despair, you gotta watch out for, you know, with the Haunted Shrine, Despair from the Dark, you have Zombina, you have the Yomi ship plays. You have to be careful of that. I definitely feel like last format, the Paranoid plays was really the only thing that was stopping Despair from kind of, in my opinion, taking over the format, just being this very easy to recur 28-3000 monsters. So Despair Stall, Despair Burn can be very, very powerful. And now that we're sort of seeing a recession of Paranoid decks, you're seeing Dark Moth not really being played, Warrior Moth. I mean, Paranoid, you know, you look at this graph, there were only 3 people playing Parasite Paranoid as their skill. And that definitely allows things like Despair Zombies and even Skull Servants a little bit higher up to see some play and see some success, just given that one of the only really, really solid outs to them was the Moth play, bringing out a 3500 beater that could just kill them pretty much every single time. But now that that's kind of going away, you might actually see people start bringing out Skull Servants and Despair, which I thought would have been phenomenal decks last format if Paranoid didn't just completely outshine them. And then we have Spellproof Armor here, misspelled Spielproof Armor, but that's okay because this is a trash deck and I don't care if we misspelled it. But you have Cursive still trying to make this thing work. I think that Spellproof Armor, just machines have a lot of problems that are not solved this format at all. Jinzo didn't help or anything like that, so there's always a couple people playing Spellproof. I don't think it's ever topped so far, and I think it only has 1 or maybe 2 tops total since Jinzo was released, so it's got its problems that Jinzo didn't really help with or solve, but maybe the Battle City box can elevate it a little bit. And then we have Dark Moth, How the Mighty Have Fallen. We've got, if you go back to Winnabox number 1, Dark Moth was the most played deck at 13 participants choosing to play it. None topped, by the way. And then I believe last Winnabox number 2, Dark Moth was at 8, perhaps 7, might have been 9. But it was definitely the 2nd or 3rd most played deck, and now it's all the way down here being played alongside Spellproof Armor, Skull Servants. More people played Skull Servants than Dark Moth for Winnabox. So Dark Moth definitely knocked down several pegs, and not really tier 1 anymore. I'd definitely say I still think it's solid. 2 people played it, but 1 person did top. So I still think it's a solid tier 2, but it's got issues. Especially to me, it's like the Dark Moth was always you make the Moth and hit them with big damage, and then you follow up with a Nightmare Wheel or a Zoma for game. Obviously, Jinzo's introduction kind of turns off the Zomas and the Nightmare Wheels, alongside the Twisters and the Dust Tornadoes, but the Jinzo as well really turns off the Nightmare Wheel and the Zoma, and that hurts because that was kind of Dark Moth's 1-2 punch, and now it's just the one punch of summoning the Moth, and that's just not really enough is what you're seeing. So Dark Moth definitely knocked off. And in Parasite Paranoid, only 3 people played it. 2 did top though. That's important to know. I still think it's a tier 2 deck. 3 people played it, 2 did top. It's still a solid deck. It's just nowhere near as solid as it was previous, just a few months ago. And then we have Burn and Apprentice Burn. So Burn, there's a lot of outs to Burn. There's a lot. I think that Burn's a solid option, but there's, you know, if you're prepared for Burn, there are plenty of cards in the card pool to deal with Burn. And so you saw 4 people play it, only 1 topped. Apprentice Burn definitely has kind of carved out its own niche as a style of Burn that I think is pretty strong. I don't think it's tier 1 by any means. We did see Giantsbane win, though. The one person who topped did win the entire event. So congratulations again to Giantsbane on his return to speed dueling. But I definitely think that Burn is still probably tier 2, maybe even tier 3. But winning this event does it no favors. I don't think it's tier 1, and just the fact that it won the event most likely means that people are going to be a little bit more prepared for it in the upcoming tournaments, and that's only going to hurt it further. But Burn is still a solid option, unfortunately. And then we have Skull Servants, 3 people, none topped. Skulls, you know, Skull Servants kind of in a tough spot, where the only time you're really going to top with Skull Servants is through the surprise factor. Obviously, we have DD Crow in the meta, and even worse, if Skull Servants really started to make a dent, we have Soul Release, which would probably just spell the end of that deck. So Skull Servants have to remain under the radar for it to do well. Otherwise, people will just have the very clear counters to it in their side deck. But Skull Servants, it's, you know, tier 3 at best, but maybe you can find some niche way to run it so that you could steal a tournament, and then everybody's running Soul Release in their side decks for the next tournament. But going up now, we have Icy Dark Warrior. I'm going to go and pull up one of these deck lists so you guys can see why I call it Dark Warrior instead of just Icy Warriors. I wanted to put it in the Icy Warrior category, but I do think it deserves its own category of Icy Dark Warrior, where you can clearly see they have taken out the Command Knights, the Gearfrieds, in favor of the Gilgarth, which is an 1800 vanilla dark monster, and adding that additional dark monster, subtracting the Earth Gearfried, the Fire Command Knight, and adding a dark Gilgarth. That's still a very similar body to Gearfried. Gives them access to the Allure of Darkness, and you can also see this is Dracor's list, who finished first in Swiss with this Icy Dark Warrior deck. He also had Nidoria's in the side, which he could side in and give him more dark targets. But you're able to run the Allure, you know, fairly consistently. And Allure in this deck mostly just looks like a sort of smoother of hands, if you will. You know, again, Allure doesn't plus, it just draws further into the deck, and can also kind of rearrange your hands a little bit, which can add some consistency to the deck. You saw that with Dark Moth, where it would find their Moth pieces and kind of fix dead hands where you just got too many Moths. Or dead, you know, gaps or Hodezes, and that's kind of how it can work here. It can get rid of a Jinzo if you have too many dead Jinzos, but it can kind of fix hands, and I think, you know, Dracor won with it. He won Swiss. I almost feel bad he was eliminated, unfortunately, in the quarterfinals. I'm actually add points to the leaderboard for that, because this has happened several times now where first place Swiss immediately gets eliminated, and I feel kind of bad, especially whenever they're undefeated, only player undefeated, and they lose. It's just, I kind of want to give them a pity point, I guess, for at least winning Swiss. So we may do that going forward, is add a point for first place Swiss. But Icy Dark Warrior did finish first in Swiss. 3 people played it. 3 people played this variant of adding in Gilgarth and Allures and taking out kind of the Gearfried and Command Knights for the Gilgarths. And then we have the 2 top dogs of the format, really. You have TP Warrior with 6 people playing it, 1 topping. Still very strong in my opinion. I think it's the best deck. I think TP is just, as a skill, is very, very powerful. I think this deck can be tweaked to pretty much beat any matchup. So in my opinion, TP Warrior is the best deck. But I think in everybody's opinion, it's a tier 1 deck. 6 people played it, 1 topped. Solid showing. It's definitely one of the most played decks currently. I would say it's the only other deck played more than it in Icy Warriors currently. And so then we have Icy Warriors, sort of the top dog in terms of seeing play. Many people favor it as the best deck overall. We did see it in the finals with Raider. A couple misplays, but it did fall to Apprentice Burn there in the finals. I'm not really sure how much Raider had teched for burn matchups as well. It didn't really look like his side deck carried any of the very common counters. So maybe not really prepped for that burn matchup or that stall matchup, dealing with the tiny little monsters with annoying effects. But we saw 14 people play this. Something like 40-45% of the people coming out played IC Warriors. 3 topped. Usually what you'll see whenever you see a massive number like this, number of players, and then a very few topping, it's usually just they kind of kamikaze each other, unfortunately, where a lot of them just had to play against each other and mirror match each other and kind of eliminate each other. But it did have almost half the top cut, 3 out of 8 were playing IC Warriors. So solid showing from IC Warriors. Unfortunately didn't win the event, but still definitely a tier 1 deck, still definitely the most prevalent deck and the deck with the highest presence in all the tournaments currently. So definitely be prepared for IC Warriors in any speed duel tournament you're going into until the Battle City box drops, and then we'll see what happens there. But that's going to do it, guys. That is going to be the deck breakdown for winner box number 3. Again, congratulations to Giantsbane for winning. If you would like to get in on this action, the largest ongoing speed duel tournaments in the world, the Speed Duel League winner boxes, we have got winner box number 4 taking place November 3rd, which is about 1 week from the timing of this video. Simply join the Speed Duel League Discord. There's a link to the description below. Join that. Go ahead and click the verification check mark at the bottom of that screen, and then scroll down to the winner box section, the sign up channel. Simply comment in there, and then send me, Alum Lion, your deck list before you play your first matches for the tournament, and you're in. So that's going to be it for this winner box. Congratulations again to Giantsbane on his triumphant return to the Speed Duel community. And I will see you guys in the next video.